In our next interview, we have Professor Paul O'Toole, who will speak on the topic of the interconnectedness of microbiomes and ecosystems and the future of the planet in relation to the microbiota and climate change.
So the United Nations has a role in promoting ways to maintain sustainable development. Dating back to 1987, they had the Brundtland Commission, they released the Millennium Goals, and then from the year 2015 to 2030, they have a series of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and they're basically a set of aspirations underpinned by dozens of targets which set out a pathway to allow humanity to develop cities, civilizations, and sustainable ecosystems so that people can maximize their opportunity for an equitable experience of a healthy, happy lifespan. And it's all underpinned by having a sustainable utilization of resources against the dramatic challenge of climate change, which makes that very daunting. The idea of One Health was formalized under that label in 2003, 2004, ironically in the outbreak of SARS for the first time. And it was actually eclipsed by COVID. And now I think most people understand what One Health means. And it essentially refers to the interconnectedness of human health, animal health, and the environment. And implicit in this recognition is the fact that with encroachment of human activities and civilizations and settlements on animal reservoirs, the prospects for zoonosis or transmission of animal disease to humans has greatly increased, and the impact of climate change on our combined human and animal ecosystems also changes the risk dynamic. And to improve human health, we have to look at animal health and environmental issues all under the same envelope called One Health. Clearly, that is the case because the community and the public health is composed of individuals. And the challenge is to try to change individual behavior to move it in a health related direction. And we've never been particularly good about that. If you think about simple things like obesity and heart disease, we all know what not to do and what not to eat to reduce our risk factors for obesity and heart disease, and we haven't been particularly good about it. And now we have the added challenge of trying to encourage people to undergo a protein switch, to consume less animal protein, consume plant protein, to achieve a sustainable supply of food for our blossoming human population. It's both a metaphor for global ecosystems, but it's a direct player in global ecosystems. So let me explain what I mean by that. As a metaphor, until recently, people didn't appreciate that they were a complex chimera of their own cells and microbial cells. And within our bodies, we have a microbial ecosystem. So to understand your microbiome, you have to understand the basic tenets of ecology about interaction of different organisms. So once people accept the notion that their overall health is governed by, well, is modulated to an extent by their community. You've got microbes, and there are complex interactions going on in there, and they're affected by things like diet and medications and antibiotics. They're starting to think about microbes in ecological terms. A similar phenomenon is happening on a global basis whereby the community of microbes all over the planet of the surface of the planet Earth and in the gases which are modulating the flow of major elements is a metaphor for the human microbiome because it's the global microbiome. And what we eat and how we behave interact with how the global microbes perform, and ultimately that has effect upon the health of the planet because they also interact with climate change. Probably the simplest one to take on board for people is greenhouse gases. And people will have heard about the debates about culling the national herd to reduce the production of methane. So one of the major biological sources of methane are gut microbes. They're actually called archaea. They're a funky ancient group of microbes. And in animals like ruminants, they contribute to methane production. And there's exciting research going on globally, Ireland, New Zealand, trying to develop additives to stop methane production in production animals, which is a great idea. So that's one side of it, but much less obvious is the fact that the cycling, the biogeochemical cycles of all the major elements in our environment, including things like carbon and carbon dioxide, nitrogen, nitrogen fixation in roots of plants, sulfur, phosphorus, they're all major elements. They're controlled by microbes. And as the planet heats and cools to different degrees in different places, the activity of those microbes is changing our ability of wetlands to access sumps for carbon dioxide, our ability to fix carbon dioxide. So we cannot see global change, global climate change, without considering the effect on the microbes. I don't think it's as logical a corollary as the fact that just because they predated humans, it could be part of the solutions, because the Anthropocene and the kinds of activities humans have been engaged in are totally unprecedented. And we have changed the global ecosystem in a way which was never foreseeable by nature. The blind watchmaker never had a plan for the effect of human activity on the planet. So I think it may be possible to harness microbes, but we can't just leave it to the microbes. We really have to get our sleeves rolled up and get stuck in if we're going to fix this. I'm currently pessimistic. Like most scientists who read about the effect of human activity on climate change, I've read the reports from the IPCC. I've read the moderates in the debate. Increasingly, I hear about tipping points. I look at global weather events which can no longer be attributed to blips in day-to-day weather. They're definitely climate change. And I think we've reached a tipping point and urgent action is required. I've traveled a bit recently. I've curtailed my travel extensively, but when I do travel, I go to places, large developed economies, and I see no awareness of climate change at all. I see people jumping into 6 liter cars. I see people throwing away plastics and living as if it were the 1960s, as if it was direct from the cast of The Graduate. I see in major economic centres in the world, I see no evidence of awareness or reaction to climate change. So I'm not overly optimistic. It's possible that we could develop better ways to maintain human population. And one scientific approach, which we're doing here in UCC, is a European project called MASTER, which is aimed at producing sustainably produced, minimally processed food. Sustainably produced means that we've thought about the life cycle analysis and the effect on the planet, and they're minimally processed, so they're designed to maintain health-related microbes. There are no additives, there are no emulsifiers, there are none of that jazz. They're almost like the foods that you would buy in the village market or the farmer's market, and they're sustainably produced. But that needs to happen on a much larger scale.